Hey, I went ahead and got a new microphone. Hopefully now I don't sound like muffled garbage all the time. I guess now we'll just have to wait and see how long this one lasts before it ends up crapping out on me. I don't want to get a new one, and I don't want to fiddle with settings. I'm scared of technology. You ever have one of those times where you give someone a second chance and they disappoint you or spit in your face? You know, against your better judgment, you decide to extend an olive branch to someone and just end up looking like a dumbass because your trust was taken advantage of by someone who had no intentions of meeting you on a level playing field? Yeah, that's how I felt after watching Farzar. What is Farzar? Why, it's only the newest hit animated adult comedy airing on Netflix, created by the two visionary geniuses who brought us Brickleberry and Paradise P.D. God help us all. Already I know it's going to be hard to talk about this without parroting some of the same points made by LS Lookin' Sexy Mark, but I'm going to try my best to make this video my own. Brickleberry and Paradise PD are perhaps the most concrete example of a Family Guy clone I can think of, many of the characters in both series as feeling like straight rip-offs of the Family Guy cast, and the majority of the humor being edge for the sake of edge. Dumb cock and shit jokes that lost all impact after like 2 episodes. Being presented with such earnesty that you can just imagine the writers fist-bumping themselves over how quote-unquote edgy they think they are. It doesn't help that the two shows are basically clones of each other already. Similar art styles, some characters fitting the exact same archetypes to the point where Paradise PD literally recycles characters wholesale from Brickleberry. Like the two dumb redneck characters. I honestly thought when I first saw Paradise PD that these were the same characters from Brickleberry, but no, they're apparently 4 different but identical dumb redneck characters, with literally the exact same design, voice actors, and personalities. That's the general degree of laziness that permeates Paradise PD in particular. I mean, Brickleberry was dull and derivative, but Paradise PD is just a straight up reskin of an existing show.
Oh, this looks like the most unnecessary crossover ever.
That brazen, shameless laziness that the showrunners constantly make reference to in their own show, it's impressive in a way. I too long to be so shameless and lazy. Perhaps one day I'll re-upload one of my older videos and put a blue tint over it and call it something new. So if my disdain for the two shows and by this crew is so well established, why did I decide to give Farzar a chance in the first place? Partially out of boredom, I guess. Waiting an entire week between Better Call Saul episodes takes a lot of time, and there's only so much CBT I can squeeze out of a single day.
Alright, let's do this.
Alright, ready?
Yep, now give me your best shot.
Alright, here goes.
And while the art style for Farzar was instantly recognizable, I at least thought the sci-fi trappings would lead to it being substantially different in the last 2 shows from those 2 chucklefucks. I thought, surely, no creative team would try to make the same show 3 times. Oh, how wrong I was. Just like the last 2 shows, Farzar also has a dumb loser idiot protagonist, an angry, edgy, disappointed dad, a quote-unquote super badass hot-blooded girl, wacky talking animal sidekick, black guy who is a shitty clone of Bender this time around, the gross old person who is obsessed with having sex and being gross. Oh, and also the dumb, idiot, incompetent doctor from Brickleberry is part of the main cast, and the show has this weird, gross monster guy who's one of the main characters. I guess that's sort of new. Honestly, watching the first episode of this show was just kind of a continuing scale of disappointment as more and more recycled characters were trotted out. I damn near turned the show off as soon as the redneck aliens appeared. It's the same fucking joke 3 times. It must be incredibly demoralizing if you're trying to get into animation, desperate to pitch an idea of yours that you have so much passion for, only to get turned away or have your project cannibalized by soulless executives, or just canned if you work with HBO Max, and then you look and see these 2 goobers have gotten paid to recycle the same plot 3 times.
Welcome everybody! Today and today only, we auctioning off animal parts for you to fuck so you don't piss off God.
But I persisted with watching this show. I'm a glutton for punishment. Plus, again, Better Call Saul was taking a long time to come out. The general plot of Farzar focuses on the titular planet of Farzar, a world that's divided between humans and aliens. The humans live in a massive domed city, and the aliens live in a ghetto and are trying to get into the city under the leadership of their supposedly evil ruler, Bazarak. only it turns out the aliens aren't entirely evil. The main character, Prince Fichel, yeah, Michael with an F counts as a sci-fi name, I guess, discovers that his father, Renzo, is actually a Zap Brannigan-style fraud who lied about the entire history between humans and aliens on Farzar, and that the aliens were forcibly expelled from their lands. So, from episode 1, Fichel decides he wants to try and find a diplomatic solution between both races. Initially, it may seem like Farzar wants to set itself aside from its two predecessors by having an overarching plot, but that aspect very rarely plays into anything over the course of the actual series. Most of the time, the show doesn't have an overarching plot and just uses some old abandoned Paradise or Brickleberry script for an episode. For instance, in both this show and Paradise PD, there's this character who is old and gross and likes sex, and so an entire episode would be dedicated to them being old and gross and liking sex. Now imagine that, but extended to one episode for each member of the main cast. Every member of the cast has one designated joke tied to their character, and as such, only one source of humor ever comes up whenever they're used. This character is stupid and pathetic, so all the jokes come from them being stupid and pathetic. This character is an asshole, so all the jokes tie into them being an asshole. This character is overly aggressive, so all the jokes tie into them being overly aggressive, and so on and so forth. And so the question I find myself asking is, why exactly did they feel the need to make this show sci-fi in the first place if it's just basically going to be Paradise PD or Brickleberry with a shiny skin over it? Both Rick and Morty and Futurama, two shows that Farzar mentions in the first 5 minutes of its first episode.
Hold on! Is this gonna be more like Futurama or Rick and Morty?
It's gonna be more like shut the fuck up.
Really feel like they rely on the sci-fi trappings of their settings. They take advantage of the sci-fi element and don't just have it as set dressing like Farzar does. Rick and Morty, for instance, uses those elements to have high concept episodes that you couldn't do in a conventional sitcom. Yeah, for the most part at least. And as for Futurama, well, it feels like Matt Groening and his crew put a whole lot of thought into how the world of tomorrow would function, and they take advantage of a lot of sci-fi tropes, incorporating them into many of Futurama's episodes, again in a way you couldn't really do in a conventional sitcom. Yeah, I'm sure Groening had plenty of time to think up the mechanics of Futurama's world when he was busy on flights with... Oh, I see how it is. The Michael Jackson episode of The Simpsons gets pulled from syndication because of some unproven slanderous bullshit, but we're just going to ignore this stuff when it comes to Matt Groening, I guess. But getting back to Fardshid for a moment, it really doesn't seem to take advantage of those same trappings in the way the other two shows do. For instance, there's this entire episode where Bazarak, the leader of the aliens, ends up hanging around with the Golden Girls for an entire episode. Not like aliens who look like the Golden Girls or anything like that, just the Golden Girls, but they live on an alien planet. Why? What's the point? This could have been a Brickleberry episode, I don't understand. I think that's the main problem with Farzar in my eyes. It's the fact that it looks like it could be something different, but ultimately isn't. It has no ambition to take advantage of this new premise and the infinite possibilities it presents creatively. It's less thinking outside the box and more thinking with your sweaty naked body pressed right against the exterior of the box. Like, if you took Prince Fichel and replaced him with the identical leads from Paradise PD or Brickleberry, the show would function the exact same way because they are essentially the same character. I think if the show had at least focused more on Lance Reddick's character, Renzo, it might have at least felt slightly different. You know, having this fake ultimate hero on a sci-fi world, conning his way through all the different adventures he gets on and generally just bullshitting his way through them. That would have been a somewhat interesting premise. Man, with Farzar and Netflix Resident Evil coming out at around the same time, either Lance Reddick will accept any work for a paycheck, or his agent just literally hates him. God, am I gonna have to do a video on that Resident Evil show at some point? I fucking hope not. I guess that's all I really have to say about Farzar. At the end of the day, it's just the latest in a long conveyor belt of uninspired, boring, adult animated comedies. I guess the only reason it stood out to me at all was because of how sheerly creatively bankrupt it was. Almost depressingly so. Boy howdy, I sure do appreciate Netflix cancelling shows from people with actual creativity and ideas behind them, but they're all too happy to greenlight a season of Paradise PD in space. Fucking assholes.